Shalom, my brothers and sisters in Yahweh, our Elohim, and welcome to our next adventure in the Book of Jasher. Tonight, we're going to be studying the Book of Jasher, chapter 37, 38, and 39. So if you got a Dead Sea Scrolls book, go ahead and grab it and get yourselves comfortable, and we'll get started here tonight in our little adventure. I hope y'all are enjoying this study. It's really cool. Alright, gang. Oh, I'm going to wet my whistle real quick. Alright. The Book of Jasher, chapter 37. In the 105th year of the life of Jacob, that is the 9th year of Jacob's dwelling with his children in the land of Canaan, he came from Paran Aram. And in those days Jacob journeyed with his children from Haran. They went and returned to the city of Shechem, they and all belonging to them, and they lived there. For the children of Jacob obtained good and fattening pasture land for their cattle in the city of Shechem. The city of Shechem, having then been rebuilt, there were in it about 300 men and women. Jacob and his children, and all belonging to him, lived in the part of the field which Jacob had bought from Hamor, the father of Shechem, when he came from Padan Aram, before Simon and Levi had smitten the city. And all those kings of the Canaanites and Amorites that surrounded the city of Shechem heard that the sons of Jacob had again come to Shechem and lived there. They said, "Shall the sons of Jacob the Hebrew again come to the city and dwell therein, after that they have smitten its inhabitants and driven them out? Shall they now return and also drive out those who are dwelling in the city, or kill them?" And all the kings of Canaan again assembled, and they came together to make war with Jacob and his sons. Here we go again. Yashab, king of Tapnach, sent also to all his neighboring kings, to Elon, king of Gaash, and to Ahirai, king of Shiloh, and to Parathon, king of Shazar, and to Susi, king of Sarton, and to Laban, king of Beth Koran, and to Sharbir, king of Othnemah, saying, "Come up to me and assist me, and let us strike Jacob the Hebrew and his sons, all belonging to him, for they are again come to Shechem to possess it and to kill its inhabitants as before." And all these kings assembled together, and came with all their camps, a people greatly plentiful like the sand on the seashore, and they were all opposite to Tapnach. Yashhag, king of Tapnach, went forth to them with all his army, and he encamped with them opposite to Tapnach outside the city. All these kings they divided into 7 divisions, being 7 camps against the sons of Jacob. And they set a declaration to Jacob and his sons, saying, "All of you come forth to us, that we may have an interview together in the plain, and revenge the cause of the men of Shechem, whom you killed in their city. You will now again return to the city of Shechem, and dwell therein, and kill its inhabitants as before." The sons of Jacob heard this, and their anger was set ablaze greatly at the words of the kings of Canaan. And 10 of the sons of Jacob hurried, and rose up, and each of them put on his weapons of war. They were 102 of their servants with them, equipped in battle array. And all these men, the sons of Jacob with their servants, went toward these kings, and Jacob their father was with them. They all stood on the heap of Shechem. Jacob prayed to the Elohim for his sons, and he spread forth his hands to the Elohim, and said, O Yahweh, you are an almighty Elohim. You are our Father. You did form us, and we are the works of your hands. I pray you deliver my sons through your mercy from the hand of their enemies, who are this day coming to fight with them, and save them from their hand. For in your hand is power and might to save the few from the many. And give to my sons, your servants, strength of heart and might to fight with their enemies, to subdue them, and to make their enemies fall before them. Let not my sons and their servants die through the hands of the children of Canaan. But if it seem good in your eyes to take away the lives of my sons and their servants, take them in your great mercy through the hands of your ministers, that they may not perish this day by the hands of the kings of the Amorites. When Jacob ceased praying to the Elohim, the earth shook from its place, and the sun darkened, and all these kings were terrified, and a great consternation seized them. The Elohim listened to the prayer of Jacob, and the Elohim impressed the hearts of all the kings and their hosts with the terror and awe of the sons of Jacob. For the Elohim caused them to hear the voice of chariots, and the voice of mighty horses from the sons of Jacob, and the voice of a great army accompanying them. And these kings were seized with great terror at the sons of Jacob, while they were standing in their quarters. Behold, the sons of Jacob advanced on them with 112 men, with a great and tremendous shouting. And when the king saw the sons of Jacob advancing towards them, they were still more panic-stricken. They were inclined to retreat from before the sons of Jacob, as at first, and not to fight with them. But they did not retreat, saying, It would be a disgrace to us to retreat twice from before the Hebrews. The sons of Jacob came near, and advanced against all these kings and their armies, and what they saw was a very mighty people, numerous as the sands of the sea. And the sons of Jacob called to the Elohim, and said, Help us, O Yahweh, help us, and answer us, for we trust in you, and let us not die by the hands of these uncircumcised men, who this day have come against us. The sons of Jacob put on their weapons of war, and they took in their hands each man his shield and his javelin, and they approached to do battle. And Judah, the son of Jacob, ran first before his brothers, and 10 of his servants with him, and he went towards these kings. Jashub, king of Tapnach, also came forth first from his army before Judah, and Judah saw Jashub and his army coming toward him, and Judah's wrath was set ablaze. His anger burned within him, and he approached to the fight in which Judah ventured his life. Jashub and all his army were advancing towards Judah, and he was riding on a very strong and powerful horse. Jashub was a very valiant man, and covered with iron and brass from head to foot. And while he was on the horse, he shot arrows with both hands from before and behind. As was his manner in all his battles, he never missed the place to which he aimed his arrows. When Jashub came to fight with Judah, and was darting many arrows against Judah, the Elohim bound the hands of Jashub, and all the arrows that he shot rebounded on his own men. And in spite of this, Joshua kept advancing towards Judah to challenge him with the arrows, but the distance between them was about 30 cubits. When Judah saw Joshua darting forth his arrows against him, he ran to him with his wrath-excited strength. Judah took up a large stone from the ground. Its weight was 60 shekels. And Judah ran towards Joshua, and with the stone struck him on his shield, so that Joshua was stunned with the blow, and fell off his horse to the ground. The shield burned asunder out of the hand of Joshua, and through the force of the blow sprang to the distance of about 15 cubits, and the shield fell before the second camp. The kings that came with Joshua saw at a distance the strength of Judah, the son of Jacob, and what he had done to Joshua. They were terribly afraid of Judah. And they assembled near Joshua's camp, seeing his confusion as Judah drew his sword and struck 42 men of the camp of Joshua. And the whole of Joshua's camp fled before Judah. No man stood against him, and they left Joshua and fled from him, and Joshua was still prostrate on the ground. Joshua, seeing that all his men of his camp had fled from him, hurried and rose up with terror against Judah, and stood on his legs opposite Judah. And Joshua had a single combat with Judah, placing shield toward shield, and Joshua's men all fled, for they were greatly afraid of Judah. Joshua took his spear in his hand to strike Judah on his head, but Judah had quickly placed his shield to his head against Joshua's spear, so that the shield of Judah received the blow from Joshua's spear, and the shield was split in two. And when Judah saw that his shield was split, he hastily drew his sword and struck Joshua at his ankles and cut off his feet, so that Joshua fell on the ground, and the spear fell from his hand. Judah hastily picked up Joshua's spear, with which he had severed his head, and cast it next to his feet. When the sons of Jacob saw what Judah had done to Joshua, they all ran into the ranks of the other kings, and the sons of Jacob fought with the army of Joshua and the armies of all the kings that were there. The sons of Jacob caused 15,000 of their men to fall, and they struck them as if smiting at gourds, and the rest fled for their lives. Judah was still standing by the body of Joshua, and stripped Joshua of his coat of mail. Judah also took off the iron and brass that were around Joshua, and then 9 men of the captains of Joshua came along to fight against Judah. Judah hurried and took up a stone from the ground, and with it struck one of them on the head. His skull was fractured, and the body also fell from the horse to the ground. And the 8 captains that remained, seeing the strength of Judah, were greatly afraid, and they fled. Judah with 10 men pursued them, and they overtook them and killed them. The sons of Jacob were still smiting the armies of the kings, and they killed many of them. But those kings daringly kept their stand with their captains, and did not retreat from their places. They shouted against those of their armies that fled from before the sons of Jacob, but none would listen to them, for they were afraid of for their lives that they should die. And all the sons of Jacob, after having smitten the armies of the kings, returned and came before Judah. Judah was still slaying the 8 captains of Joshua, and stripping off their garments. And Levi saw Elon, king of Gaash, advancing towards him with his 14 captains to strike him. But Levi did not know it for certain. Elon, with his captains, approached near, and Levi looked back and saw that battle was coming to him from the rear. Levi ran with 12 of his servants, and they went and killed Elon and his captains with the edge of the sword. Chapter 38. Ahirai, king of Shiloh, came up to assist Elon, and he approached Jacob. When Jacob drew his bow that was in his hand, with an arrow struck Ahirai, which caused his death. And when Ahirai, king of Shiloh, was dead, the 4 remaining kings fled from their station with the rest of their captains. They endeavored to retreat, saying, "We have no more strength with the Hebrews after their having killed the 3 kings and their captains, who were more powerful than we are." When the sons of Jacob saw that the remaining kings had left their station, they pursued them, and Jacob also came from the heap of Shechem, from the place where he was standing. They went after the kings, and they approached them with their servants. And the kings and the captains with the rest of their armies, seeing that the sons of Jacob approached them, were afraid for their lives and fled till they reached the city of Shazar. The sons of Jacob pursued them to the gate of the city of Shazar, and they struck a great smiting amongst the kings and their armies, about 4,000 men. While they were smiting the army of the kings, Jacob was occupied with his bow, confining himself to smite the kings, and he killed them all. And he killed Parathon, king of Shazar, at the gate of the city of Shazar, and afterwards struck Sushi, king of Sarton, and Laban, king of Beth-Corin, and Shabir, king of Machnamah. He killed them all with arrows, an arrow to each of them, and they died. The sons of Jacob, seeing that all the kings were dead, and that they were broken up and retreating, continued to carry on the battle with the armies of the kings opposite the gate of Shazar. And they still struck about 400 of their men. 3 men of the servants of Jacob fell in that battle. And when Judah saw that the 3 of his servants had died, it grieved him greatly, and his anger burned within him against the Amorites. And all the men that remained of the armies of the kings were greatly afraid for their lives, and they ran and broke the gate of the walls of the city of Shazar. They all entered the city for safety. They concealed themselves in the midst of the city of Shazar, for the city of Shazar was very large and extensive. And when all these armies had entered the city, the sons of Jacob ran after them into the city. 4 mighty men, experienced in battle, went forth from the city and stood against the entrance of the city with drawn swords and spears in their hands. They placed themselves opposite the sons of Jacob and would not let them enter the city. Naphtali ran and came between them, and with his sword struck 2 of them and cut off their heads at one stroke. He turned to the other 2 and saw that they had fled. He pursued them, overtook them, struck them, and killed them. When the sons of Jacob came to the city and saw there was another wall to the city, they sought for the gate of the wall and could not find it. Judah sprang on the top of the wall, and Simon and Levi followed him, and they all 3 descended from the wall into the city. Simon and Levi killed all the men who ran for safety into the city, and also the inhabitants of the city with their wives and little ones they killed with the edge of the sword, and the cries of the city ascended up to heaven. And Dan and Naphtali sprang on the wall to see what caused the noise of the wailing, for the sons of Jacob felt anxious about their brothers. They heard the inhabitants of the city speaking and weeping and pleas, saying, "Take all that we possess in the city and go away, only do not put us to death." When Judah, Simon, and Levi had ceased smiting the inhabitants of the city, they ascended the wall and called to Dan and Naphtali, who were on the wall, and to the rest of their brothers. Simon and Levi informed them of the entrance into the city, and all the sons of Jacob came to gather the spoil. And the sons of Jacob took the spoil of the city of Shazar, the flocks and herds and the property, and they took all that could be captured and went away that day from the city. On the next day the sons of Jacob went to Sarton, for they heard that the men of Sarton who had remained in the city were assembling to fight with them for having slain their king. Sarton was a very high and fortified city, and it had a deep rampart surrounding the city. It had a moat. And the pillar of the rampart was about 50 cubits, and its breadth 40 cubits. There was no place for a man to enter the city on account of the rampart. The sons of Jacob saw the rampart of the city, and they sought an entrance in it, but could not find it. For the entrance to the city was at the rear, and every man that wished to come into the city came by that road and went around the whole city, and afterwards entered into the city. The sons of Jacob, seeing they could not find the way into the city, their anger was set ablaze greatly, and the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the sons of Jacob were coming to them, were greatly afraid of them, for they had heard of their strength and what they had done to Shazar. And the inhabitants of the city of Sarton could not go out toward the sons of Jacob after having assembled in the city to fight against them, that they might thereby not get into the city. But when they saw that they were coming toward them, they were greatly afraid of them, for they had heard of their strength and what they had done to Shazar. So the inhabitants of Sarton speedily took away the bridge of the road of the city from its place before the sons of Jacob came, and they brought it into the city. The sons of Jacob came and sought the way into the city, and could not find it, and the inhabitants of the city went up to the top of the wall, and they saw that the sons of Jacob were seeking an entrance into the city. The inhabitants of the city reproached the sons of Jacob from the top of the wall, and they cursed them. And the sons of Jacob heard the reproaches, and they were greatly incensed. Their anger burned within them. The sons of Jacob were provoked at them. They all rose and sprang over the ramparts with the force of their strength, and through their might passed the 40 cubits breadth of the rampart. They jumped over the moat, 40 cubits. Wow. And when they had passed the rampart, they stood under the wall of the city, and they found all the gates of the city enclosed with iron doors. The sons of Jacob came near to break open the doors of the gates of the city, and the inhabitants did not let them, for from the top of the wall they were casting stones and arrows on them. And the number of the people that were on the wall was about 400 men. And when the sons of Jacob saw that the men of the city would not let them open the gates of the city, they sprang and ascended to the top of the wall, and Judah went up first to the east part of the city. So now they're flying up onto the wall. And Gad and Asher went up after him to the west corner of the city, and Simon and Levi to the north, and Dan and Reuben to the south. The men who were on the top of the wall, the inhabitants of the city, seeing that the sons of Jacob were coming up to them, all fled from the wall, descended into the city, and concealed themselves in the middle of the city. Issachar and Naphtali, that remained under the wall, approached, and broke the gates of the city, and set a blaze of fire at the gates of the city, that the iron melted. And all the sons of Jacob came into the city, they and all their men. They fought with the inhabitants of the city of Sarton, and struck them with the edge of the sword, and no man stood up before them. About 200 men fled from the city. They all went and hid themselves in a certain tower in the city. Judah pursued them to the tower, and broke down the tower, which fell on the men, and they all died. The sons of Jacob went up the road of the roof of that tower, and they looked, and there was another strong and high tower at the distance in the city, and the top of it reached to the heaven. The sons of Jacob hurried, and descended and went with all their men to that tower, and found it filled with about 300 men, women, and little ones. The sons of Jacob struck a great smiting among those men in the tower, and they ran away and fled from them. And Simon and Levi pursued them, with 12 mighty and valiant men come out to them from the place where they had concealed themselves. And those 12 men maintained a strong battle against Simon and Levi, and Simon and Levi could not prevail over them. Those valiant men broke the shields of Simon and Levi, and one of them struck at Levi's head with his sword, when Levi hastily placed his hand to his head, for he was afraid of the sword. The sword struck Levi's hand, and the hand of Levi was nearly cut off. Levi seized the sword of the valiant man in his hand, and took it forcibly from the man. With it he struck at the head of the powerful man, and he severed his head. 11 men approached to fight with Levi, for they saw that one of them was killed. The sons of Jacob fought, but the sons of Jacob could not defeat them, for those men were very powerful. And the sons of Jacob, seeing that they could not win over them, Simon gave a loud and tremendous shriek, and the 11 powerful men were stunned at the voice of Simon shrieking. Judah at a distance knew the voice of Simon shouting, and Naphtali and Judah ran with their shields to Simon and Levi, and found them fighting with those powerful men, unable to defeat them, as their shields were broken. Naphtali saw that the shield of Simon and Levi were broken, and he took 2 shields from his servants, and brought them to Levi and to Simon. And Simon and Levi and Judah on that day fought all 3 against the 11 mighty men until the time of sunset, but they could not win over them. This was told to Jacob, and he was very grieved. He prayed to the Elohim, and he and Naphtali his son went against these mighty men. Jacob approached, drew his bow, and came near to the mighty men, and killed 3 of their men with his bow. The remaining 8 turned back, and excuse me there. Dang it. Verse 46. Jacob approached, drew his bow, and came near to the mighty men, and killed 3 of their men with the bow. The remaining 8 turned back, and then the war waged against them in the front and in the rear. They were greatly afraid for their lives, and could not stand before the sons of Jacob, and they fled from before them. In their flight they met Dan and Asher coming toward them, and they suddenly fell on them and fought with them, and killed 2 of them. Judah and his brothers pursued them, and struck the remainder of them, and killed them. All the sons of Jacob returned, and walked through the city, searching if they could find any men. They found about 20 young men in a cave in the city. Gad and Asher struck them all, and Dan and Naphtali lighted on the rest of the men who had fled and escaped from the second tower, and they struck them all. The sons of Jacob struck all the inhabitants of the city of Sarton, but the women and little ones they left in the city and did not kill them. Oh, my stupid nose. And all the inhabitants of the city of Sarton were powerful men. One of them would pursue 1,000, and 2 of them would not flee from 10,000 of the rest of men. The sons of Jacob killed all the inhabitants of the city of Sarton with the edge of the sword. No man stood up against them, and they left the women in the city. The sons of Jacob took all the spoil of the city and captured what they desired, and they took flocks and herds and property from the city. The sons of Jacob did to Sarton and its inhabitants as they had done to Shazar and its inhabitants, and they turned and went away. Chapter 39. When the sons of Jacob went from the city of Sarton, they had gone about 200 cubits, when they met the inhabitants of Tapnach coming toward them. For they went out to fight with them, because they had smitten the king of Tapnach and all his men. So all that remained in the city of Tapnach came out to fight with the sons of Jacob, and they thought to retake from them the booty and the spoil which they had captured from Shazar and Sarton. The rest of the men of Tapnach fought with the sons of Jacob in that place, and the sons of Jacob struck them, and they fled before them. They pursued them to the city of Aberlon, and they all fell before the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob returned and came to Tapnach to take away the spoil of Tapnach. When they came to Tapnach, they heard that the people of Aberlon had gone out to meet them to save the spoil of their brothers. The sons of Jacob left 10 of their men in Tapnach to plunder the city, and they went out toward the people of Aberlon. The men of Aberlon went out with their wives to fight with the sons of Jacob, for their wives were experienced in battle. They went out about 400 men and women. And all the sons of Jacob shouted with a loud voice. They all ran toward the inhabitants of Aberlon with a great and tremendous voice. The inhabitants of Aberlon heard the noise of the shouting of the sons of Jacob, and their roaring like the noise of lions, and like the roaring of the sea and its waves. And fear and terror possessed their hearts on the account of the sons of Jacob. They were terribly afraid of them, and they retreated and fled before them into the city. The sons of Jacob pursued them to the gates of the city, and they came on them in the city. The sons of Jacob fought with them in the city, and all their women were engaged in slinging against the sons of Jacob. The combat was very severe among them all of that day until evening. Verse 10, and the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them. The sons of Jacob had almost perished in that battle. The sons of Jacob cried to the Elohim and greatly gained strength toward evening. The sons of Jacob struck all the inhabitants of Aberlon by the edge of the sword, men, women, and little ones. Also the remainder of the people who had fled from Sarton, the sons of Jacob struck them in Aberlon, and the sons of Jacob did to Aberlon and Tapnach as they had done to Shazar and Sarton. When the women saw that all the men were dead, they went on the roofs of the city and struck the sons of Jacob by showering down stones like rain. And the sons of Jacob hurried and came into the city and seized all the women and struck them with the edge of the sword. The sons of Jacob captured all the spoil and booty, flocks and herds and cattle. The sons of Jacob did to Machnaimah as they had done to Tapnach and Shazar and to Shiloh. and they turned from there and went away. On the 5th day the sons of Jacob heard that the people of Gaash had gathered against them to battle, because they had slain their king and their captains. For there had been 14 captains in the city of Gaash, and the sons of Jacob had slain them all in the first battle. My stupid nose. And the sons of Jacob that day put on their weapons of war, and they marched to battle against the inhabitants of Gaash. In Gaash there was a strong and mighty people of the people of the Amorites. Gaash was the strongest and best fortified city of all the cities of the Amorites, and it had 3 walls. The sons of Jacob came to Gaash, and they found the gates of the city locked, and about 500 men standing at the top of the outermost wall. The people, numerous as the sand of the seashore, were in ambush for the sons of Jacob from outside the city at the rear. And the sons of Jacob approached to open the gates of the city, and while they were drawing near to it, those who were in ambush at the rear of the city came forth from their places and surrounded the sons of Jacob. The sons of Jacob were enclosed between the people of Gaash, and the battle was both to their front and rear. All the men that were on the wall were casting from the wall on them arrows and stones. And Judah, seeing that the men of Gaash were getting too strong for them, gave a most piercing and tremendous shriek. And all the men of Gaash were terrified at the voice of Judah's cry. Men fell from the wall at his powerful shriek, and all those that were from without and within the city were greatly afraid for their lives. And the sons of Jacob still came closer to break the doors of the city, when the men of Gaash threw stones and arrows on them from the top of the wall, and made them flee from the gate. The sons of Jacob returned against the men of Gaash, who were with them from outside the city, and they struck them terribly, as striking against gourds. And they could not stand against the sons of Jacob, for fright and terror had seized them at the shriek of Judah. The sons of Jacob killed all those men who were outside the city, and the sons of Jacob still drew nearer to make an entrance into the city, and to fight under the city walls. But they could not, for all the inhabitants of Gaash who remained in the city had surrounded the walls of Gaash in every direction. The sons of Jacob were unable to approach the city to fight with them. The sons of Jacob came near to one corner to fight under the wall. The inhabitants of Gaash threw arrows and stones on them like showers of rain, and they fled from under the wall. And the people of Gaash, who were on the wall, seeing that the sons of Jacob could not prevail over them from under the wall, reproached the sons of Jacob in these words, saying, "What is the matter with you in the battle that you cannot prevail? Can you then do to the mighty city of Gaash and its inhabitants as you did to the cities of the Amorites that were not so powerful? Certainly to those weak ones among us you did those things and killed them in the entrance of the city, for they had no strength, when they were terrified at the sound of your shouting. And will you now then be able to fight in this place? Certainly here you will all die, and we will avenge the cause of those cities that you have laid waste." And the inhabitants of Gaash greatly reproached the sons of Jacob and reviled them with their gods, and continued to cast arrows and stones on them from the wall. Judah and his brothers heard the words of the inhabitants of Gaash, and their anger was greatly roused, and Judah was zealous of his Elohim in this matter. And he called out and said, "O Elohim, help! Send help to us and our brothers." And he ran at a distance with all his might, with his sword drawn in his hand, and he sprang from the earth, and by dint of his strength mounted the wall, and his sword fell from his hand. And Judah shouted on the wall, and all the men that were on the wall were terrified. Some of them fell from the wall into the city and died, and those who were yet on the wall, when they saw Judah's strength, were greatly afraid, and fled for their lives into the city for safety. And some were emboldened to fight with Judah on the wall, and they came close to kill him, when they saw that there was no sword in Judah's hand. And they thought of casting him from the wall to his brothers. 20 men of the city came up to assist them. They surrounded Judah, and all shouted over him, and approached him with drawn swords. They terrified Judah, and Judah cried out to his brothers from the wall. And Jacob and his sons drew the bow from under the wall, and struck 3 of the men that were on top of the wall. And Judah continued to cry, and he exclaimed, "O Elohim, help us! O Elohim, deliver us!" And he cried out with a loud voice on the wall, and the cry was heard at a great distance. After this cry he again repeated a shout, and all the men who surrounded Judah on the top of the wall were terrified. They each threw his sword from his hand at the sound of Judah shouting and his tremors, and fled. Judah took the swords which had fallen from their hands, and he fought with them and killed 20 of their men on the wall. About 80 men and women still ascended the wall from the city, and they all surrounded Judah. And the Elohim impressed the fear of Judah in their hearts, so that they were unable to approach him. And Jacob and all who were with him drew the bow from under the wall, and they killed 10 men on the wall. They fell below the wall in front of Jacob and his sons. And the people on the wall, seeing that 20 of their men had fallen, still ran toward Judah with drawn swords, but they could not approach him, for they were greatly terrified at Judah's strength. And one of their mighty men, whose name was Arud, approached to strike Judah on the head with his sword. When Judah hastily put his shield to his head, the sword hit the shield, and it was split in 2. This mighty man, after he had struck Judah, ran for his life at the fear of Judah, and his feet slipped on the wall, and he fell among the sons of Jacob who were below the wall, and the sons of Jacob struck him and killed him. And Judah's head pained him from the blow of the powerful man. Judah had nearly died from it. And Judah cried out on the wall, owing the pain produced by the blow. When Dan heard him, and his anger burned within him, he also rose up, and went a distance, and ran, and sprang from the earth, and mounted the wall with his wrath excited strength. And when Dan came on the wall near to Judah, all the men on the wall fled who had stood against Judah. They went up to the second wall, and they threw arrows and stones on Dan and Judah from the second wall, and endeavored to drive them from the wall. And the arrows and stones struck Dan and Judah, and they nearly been killed on the wall. Wherever Dan and Judah fled from the wall, they were attacked with arrows and stones from the second wall. And Jacob and his sons were still at the entrance of the city below the first wall, and they were not able to draw their bow against the inhabitants of the city, as they could not be seen by them, being on the second wall. Dan and Judah, when they could no longer bear the stones and arrows that fell on them from the second wall, both sprang onto the second wall near the people of the city. When the people of the city who were on the second wall saw that Dan and Judah had come to them on the second wall, they all cried out and descended below between the walls. Jacob and his sons heard the noise of the shouting from the people of the city, and they were still at the entrance of the city. They were anxious about Dan and Judah, who were not seen by them, they being on the second wall. Naphtali went up with his wrath-excited might, and sprang on the first wall to see what caused the noise of the shouting which they had heard in the city. Issachar and Zebulun came near to break the doors of the city, and they opened the gates of the city and came into the city. Naphtali leaped from the first wall to the second, and came to assist his brothers, the inhabitants of Gaash, who were on the wall. Seeing that Naphtali was the third who had come up to assist his brothers, all fled and descended into the city, and Jacob and all his sons and all their young men came into the city to them. Judah and Dan and Naphtali descended from the wall into the city, and pursued the inhabitants of the city, and Simon and Levi were from outside the city, and didn't know that the gate was opened. They went up from there to the wall, and came down to their brothers into the city. The inhabitants of the city had all descended into the city, and the sons of Jacob came to them from different directions. The battle waged against them from the front and the rear, and the sons of Jacob struck them terribly, and killed about 20,000 of the men and women. Not one of them could stand up against the sons of Jacob. And the blood flowed plentifully in the city, and it was like a brook of water. The blood flowed like a brook to the outermost part of the city, and reached the desert of Beth-Corin. And the people of Beth-Corin saw at a distance the blood flowing from the city of Gaash, and about 70 men from among them ran to see the blood, and they came to the place where the blood was. They followed the track of blood, and came to the wall of the city of Gaash, and they saw the blood issue from the city. They heard the voice of crying from the inhabitants of Gaash, for it ascended to heaven, and the blood was continuing to flow abundantly like a brook of water. And all the sons of Jacob were still smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, and were engaging in slaying them till evening, about 20,000 men and women. And the people of Corinth said, "Certainly this is the work of the Hebrews, for they are still carrying on war in all the cities of the Amorites." And those people hurried and ran to Beth-Corin, and each took his weapons of war. They cried out to all the inhabitants of Beth-Corin, who also put on their weapons of war, to go and fight with the sons of Jacob. When the sons of Jacob had done smiting the inhabitants of Gaash, they walked about the city to strip all the slain. Coming into the innermost part of the city, and farther on, they met 3 very powerful men, and there was no sword in their hand. The sons of Jacob came up to the place where they were, and the powerful man ran away. One of them had taken Zebulun, who he saw was a young lad, and of short stature, and with his mighty dashed him to the ground. And Jacob ran to him with his sword, and Jacob struck him below his loins with the sword, and cut him in two, and the body fell on Zebulun. The second one approached and seized Jacob to fell him to the ground. Jacob turned to him and shouted to him, while Simon and Levi ran and struck him on the hips with the sword, and felled him to the ground. And the powerful man rose up from the ground with wrath-excited might. Judah came to him before he had gained his footing, and struck him on the head with the sword, and his head was split, and he died. The third powerful man, seeing that his companions were killed, ran from before the sons of Jacob, and the sons of Jacob pursued him into the city. While the powerful man was fleeing, he found one of the swords of the inhabitants of the city. He picked it up and turned to the sons of Jacob, and fought them with that sword. The powerful man ran to Judah to strike him on the head with a sword, and there was no shield in the hand of Judah. While he was aiming to strike him, Naphtali hastily took his shield and put it to Judah's head, and the sword of the powerful man hit the shield of Naphtali, and Judah escaped the sword. Simon and Levi ran unto the powerful man with their swords and struck at him forcibly with their swords. And the two swords entered the body of the powerful man and divided it in two lengthwise. They split him right down the middle. And the sons of Jacob struck the three mighty men at that time, together with all the inhabitants of Gaash. And the day was about to decline. And the sons of Jacob walked about Gaash, and took all the spoil of the city, even the little ones and women they did not allow to live. And the sons of Jacob did to Gaash as they had done to Sarton and Shiloh. And that is the end of chapter 39. Wow! Wow! There's a lot going on there, gang. Holy cow. I know that was a little bit long tonight. And I'm sorry for my stupid sinuses acting up. They do that. I got horrible allergies. I know they're terrible, and I don't want to blow my nose on the video. So we're going to go ahead and end this tonight. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you keeping up with the study. This is a really cool study, and it is action-packed. We're going to need a new box of crayons after this one, guys. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks again, gang, for joining me. And I hope that you continue to join me for this study. It's way cool. Bring your friends. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, we will see you again on Shabbat for our Shabbat Bible study in Deuteronomy. So, until then, we'll see you then. Shalom.